What I'm going to talk about today is how to reuse your evidences. But that means build reusability in your compliance program, and then how you can actually go ahead and make it more scalable. Simple, but yeah, it will require some effort from our side, right? So yeah, I'll skip this slide. You know who I am, and let's start with the discussion. So first thing first, why compliances are a burden, right? So right now, what I'm doing is I'm talking to a lot of my customers as solution architect and trying to understand how they are actually completing compliances. At the same time, I have a few years of audit experience where I completed audits for a lot of, small and large organizations. Majority of them were doing compliances over Excel files. And that's where they came back to me saying that, okay, compliances is a burden. And these are the 4 or 5 pointers which we very frequently hear from them when we ask them why you feel that compliance is a burden for them, right? First thing first, complexity and volume of regulation. You all agree that, with each passing day, different countries are coming up with different type of compliances for different type of data. We used to say that, okay, ISO is a good starting point, or SOC 2 is a good starting point, but now there are so many different compliances out there, and as a global company, as an MNC, you are required to go for, get compliant for all of these compliance frameworks. And again, it's an annual work, right? Every year you have to get audits done. So it's pretty difficult to actually keep track of all of these compliances, something which is already released, something which is coming up, and make sure that your environment is compliant enough, right? Second one is scalability of compliance program. It's related to first point itself, but yeah, what's happening nowadays is majority of the companies are managing compliance on Excel files or your offline tools. And when you start growing as a company, when you start venturing into new geography, you will have to go ahead and get compliant to new frameworks. Excel files are not scalable in nature. A lot of these evidences are asked from engineering team. These are very expensive resources. And when you're asking them to submit again and again a few evidences, uh, a lot of these precious time which can be put into your product development, feature enhancement is going into compliance maintenance. And this is definitely not a scalable way to, go ahead and, build a, a decent size compliance program in your organization, right? Second is inconsistent interpretation of different frameworks. Now, what this is about is simple. There are many auditing companies out there in the market. There are many auditors within the auditing companies, and the compliances are written by auditors for auditors, right? It's very difficult to understand what exactly this criteria or control is talking about, and exactly what your auditor is going to ask for when they are going to audit you, right? This is where this particular point comes in, that, okay, there is nobody to actually tell them what exactly is required as an evidence, right? Third point is resources and cost intensive. All of these top 3 points actually boils down to this particular problem. When you scale your compliances, you have to hire more resources, you have to incur more costs, there's more effort, there's a lot of time that is getting wasted of expensive resources. And this is becoming a big and big problem every time a new compliance is launched in the market, right? And last one is lack of real-time monitoring, something which is coming up nowadays. Uh, as human, we have a tendency of, once we have completed the compliance, once we have got certified, we think about getting the next audit only next year, so right before the audit, 2 months before the audit. And then we realize that, okay, there was an evidence required which is not there because there was nobody intimating you that, okay, this particular activity is not getting done. So now what compliance teams globally are asking for is, I want a system which is in place, which is continuously monitoring my environment only from compliance perspective and telling me what exactly is missing for my next audit. So that, all right, whatever effort you have put in your first year audit, second year audit should be as smooth as possible, right? Without any kind of hassle, without any kind of, you know, going through all your files, going through all your Google Drive, searching for that just one file which is missing, right? It has to be there in one single repository. So these are the major top 5 problems that we identified when we were, talking to a lot of customers, a lot of prospects in the industry. And now let us talk about what you can actually do about it, how you can actually go ahead and solve it, right? So you need a system. This is where we're talking about a system. You need a system that can seamlessly comply to multiple frameworks, and at the same time maximize control reusability. Now we are going to use the word reusability a lot of time because that's the main area where Sprinto is focusing in this particular session. That's one of our feature which is going to help you reduce your workload a lot, right? So that's your Sprinto. That's what we are doing. We are calling the particular feature as these are three feature which we are calling combined together as a magic mapping. Let's talk about these feature one by one. So first star feature is common control framework. Now, what does this mean? So first thing that Sprinto did was we built our product bottoms up. We talked to the last stakeholders in the entire compliance chain. That means your scoping, gap assessment, remediation, and then audit, right? We talked to the auditors first. We understood from them that what exactly the auditors are looking for in terms of evidences when we are going to put our customers in front of them, right? And from there, we decided that, okay, these are the audit evidences required for each of the 20 plus frameworks that we support. And then we started mapping them together that, okay, fine, maybe PCI is talking about something in a different language, whereas ISO is talking about something in a different language. But in the end, both of them are actually asking for this same common evidence. Why not I collect this evidence once and supply it to both these frameworks and make both of these compliant, right? That's the idea of having a common control framework. So now we have created our own control environment. That control environment is linked to all my different frameworks and controls, criteria which I am supporting. And accordingly, I'm able to reuse the evidences, right? Uh, don't worry about it. I will be showcasing it to you on a demo. Demo is definitely a part of our session today. Second one is bring your own framework and control. So yeah, I said that 20 plus frameworks, but there are 200, 250 plus frameworks globally, right? The speed at which the frameworks are getting released globally, we as a company, we are not able to match that pace, right? So what we are doing today is we have created a feature called bring your own framework and bring your own control. What you can do is for the controls that we support or for the frameworks that we support out of the box, you don't have to set up anything. But that will not limit you to use Sprinto as a next gen GRC solution, where you can actually go ahead, even add your non-infosec compliance framework, create the criterias on the tool, create the controls on the tool, and then give yourself a reminder that, okay, XYZ evidence needs to be uploaded on this particular date. So it is still a GRC tool where you can go ahead and add your evidences. At the same time, if you think that that's something you are collecting for ISO, tell us about it and we will start collecting the same for your framework as well, right? This is where our third feature, magic mapping, comes into picture. What this feature is doing is you tell us for any random framework that we don't support that, okay, this is related to ISO or SOC 2 or any framework that we support through this particular control, right? Let's say in your framework, let's call it framework test one. Control number one is related to control number A6.2 in ISO. That's it. That's the only information we need. Once we have that information, again, Sprinto is smart enough to know that what evidences are required for A6.2. If these two are related, we can capture the same evidences that we are actually capturing for A6.2 while making you ISO compliant, as an example, and submit the same in your evidence dashboard for your framework test one, right? And this is what we are calling it as magic mapping. So you don't have to go ahead and, again, even for a framework that we are not supporting, you don't have to, go ahead and submit evidences again and again. It's just a map that you will have to create. And you can use common control frameworks out there in the market like SCF or UCF and so on and so forth to actually get that mapping, right? As simple as that. Now, I'm almost at the last part of my slides and I'll move to product demo, but I want to talk about how you are actually benefiting from this, right? Definitely, we talked about 5 pain points. We're trying to solve those 5 pain points. But what you are doing, again, I'm coming back to the point that you are reusing evidences smartly, which are acceptable by the auditors. And hence, in the end, a few changes here and there, and you are now compliant to a new framework. So for us, if for example, you are ISO 27001 compliant and you come to me saying that, okay, I want to be SOC 2 compliant now, I will not say that it's a new project for me. For me, I know based on my common control framework that ISO and ISO 27001 and SOC 2 3 trust service criteria are nearly 80-85% same. So I already have these compliance evidences, right? For me, it's just 15% extra evidences. That means 15% extra effort. And now you are compliant to a new framework, right? That's how easy it is to be compliant to new frameworks on Sprinto. All right. So let us experience what I'm talking about. Let me show you how exactly it's going to, look in the environment. Just allow me a second. I will switch screens. Yeah. I hope my other screen is visible, which is, which is about a test environment. Or I'll go ahead and share my screen again. Problem. Just allow me a second. Yeah. Sharing my screen again.
Yeah,
Right.
we can.
Wonderful. Let me hide this drawer. We don't need it for now. Okay. So right now, I'm not going to give you an entire demo of product of our product. There are a lot of features which we can discuss. Each feature is a use case in itself. I'm going to discuss just one use case today, which is this magic mapping framework. In total, sum of 3 features that we have, right? Now, if you see, these are the frameworks that we are supporting. The one which are marked in green are the one which I have enabled for a demo account. One which are in gray, these are not enabled, right? So if you see here, each of this card has a percentage mapped to it, right? Now, if I say that 69% of my SOC 2 security controls are ready and they are working, I know that even though I've not enabled privacy, that 42% of my privacy is working. 68% of IS 27017 is working, and so on and so forth. How I am knowing this is because I know that if, for example, today I go and enable NIST CSF, many of the controls which or evidences which I have captured for my SOC 2 security, I have captured, I can reuse it for NIST CSF, as simple as that. This is a simple depiction of your common control framework, but yeah, I'll go ahead and show it to you on the control section, which will make it more clear. Now, say I'm going to take this very first example here. SPR1 is a control that we have defined. This is part of our common control framework. There was one problem that we talked about, right? That there is different interpretation of each and every controls of different frameworks out there in the market. That's where we actually sat with the auditors and understood that, okay, what exactly is the evidence that you need in the end? And we rewrote the control in such a manner that it's easy to understand, right? So for example, if you see this is our first control. It says that entity has established policy to define behavioral standard, acceptable business conduct, and make it available to all staff members on company employee portal. Simple enough to understand for anybody in the organization. Now here's a control owner. And now we are also highlighting that, okay, this particular control and different forms is available in different frameworks. For example, CC 1.1 and CC 2.2 of SOC 2 security, A 6.2 and 6.4 for IS 27001, PCI DSS, GDPR, and different articles is ultimately talking to this particular requirement. And if you are actually compliant to this particular requirement, you will be compliant to these different criteria of the mapped framework. I've enabled these framework, but yeah, for all the frameworks we support, I can go ahead and keep on adding more frameworks and the mapping will come into picture, right? And then this particular card here shows that, okay, what exactly I am monitoring against these controls, right? So what I'm monitoring is code of business conduct policy should be defined. This is a check which is running, which is actually going ahead and collecting evidences to prove compliance against this. These evidences will be actually fed into the audit dashboard, right? So code of conduct policy should be defined. Of course, I need a code of conduct policy. That's what the control is all about. Policy should be acknowledged by new staff, and staff should periodically acknowledge policies. So if I have all of these 3 evidences, then I will say that I am compliant to SPR1, and I'll say that I'm compliant to X, Y, and Z frameworks criteria, right? And this is what is your common control framework. This is a plain simple working of your common control framework, right? Now, second feature was bring your own framework and bring your own control. It is again very simple. Let's say you are adding a framework, a privacy act applicable to a particular country, right? That's something which Sprinto does not support. We support GDPR, CCPA, but for that particular country, we do not support that particular privacy act. What you need to do is, but yeah, you are already compliant and you are actually trying to build that same, criteria and control and then framework on this GRC system that you have bought for yourself. How you can actually go ahead and do it? Very simple, actually. I'll hide this meeting control. Yeah. So what you can do is, first thing that you have to do is you have to go ahead and add your control list, which is applicable for this particular new framework, right? You simply go to add new controls. You can add controls one at a time if it's just one or two controls, and you can go ahead and add controls in bulk. So there's a CSV template. I'll go ahead and show you the templates. I have it open with me. So here's the control template, right? I've built it for the demo purpose. So this template will ask you the control number, the control statement, and if you have this detail, SOC 2 security or ISO, I have put both here. You can choose any one framework from your UCF or SCF, etc., and put the mapping here, right? Once you finish it up, you go back to Sprinto, you add your control by simply importing this CSV file. I'll go ahead, and this one is test criteria. This is SCF. We will read the controls. All the controls are loaded here. I'll add these 63 controls, which I have uploaded, right? Okay, all these controls are added now. Now let's talk about, so all these controls I told you, right? Here we had mapping for software security, ISO, PCI, blah, blah, blah. But these new controls which I have ordered, they are not mapped to checks, right? So I'll go ahead and find these unmapped controls. Now, these are my unmapped controls. Everything which is unmapped is mapped here or mentioned here, right? So this is one control which I added, CTRL BCD 1.1. If I go in here, I added in my Excel sheet that SOC 2 security CC 7.5 and ISO 8.13 is mapped to this particular control. And now Sprinto is giving me a auto map check feature. And this is what we are calling as Magic Map. So what's happening here is Sprinto has read that, okay, this control, which is an outside control from Sprinto's environment, is mapped to these two criterias within the SOC 2 security and ISO frameworks world. And because we know these frameworks, we know what these frameworks are, we have checks and maps according to these, we can actually go ahead and tell you. When I go to auto map checks, tool is actually telling me that, okay, if you are mapping this, and this, you are actually collecting all the evidence required because this is what this is mapped to, right? So this is what is magic mapping. Simple. What we have done is we have created a control list. We have identified to which ISO or SOC 2 control or NIST control. I've taken ISO and SOC 2 as an example here. This control is related. Now tool knows what needs to be collected for that particular ISO or SOC 2 control. And it is suggesting you that, okay, these are the checks which needs to be running to collect evidences. I'll simply go ahead and review this list, what tool is suggesting. If I think that, okay, yeah, it's covering everything, I'll go ahead and map selected checks. And it will start monitoring all of these checks against these controls. And my framework is set up, right? This way, my framework will be set up. And this is your magic mapping. Pretty simple. Next thing I'm going to show you is my third feature, which is bring your own control. Again, pretty simple. In the frameworks page, you have something called add your own framework. I'll go ahead, add your own framework. I'll call it, say, test framework 1. You can give a description, etc., and go ahead and add a frame, right? When you come down here, yeah, here it is. Here's the custom framework section where you will find all your custom frameworks. I'll go ahead and enable this particular framework because I'm building it out. Enable framework. Now, next thing which I want to do is I want to tell Sprinto what are the criteria of this particular framework. What are the things which auditor is going to check about, right? So I'll go ahead and add criteria in bulk. Again, this is something which I have built here. It's pretty simple. You have to, now a framework can be run into multiple level. I'm taking a framework which is run into 3 levels here. It can be 2 level, 1 level, whatever, right? So you have your level 1. Say I'm calling it code 1, code 2, code 3, your level 2, level 1 name, which is assets, physical security, access management, and blah, blah, blah. So there will be controls around it. Now, if you see here, till from column A to column F, these are the criteria of the framework. Here, I am mapping the controls which I have defined in my control section, right? So we talked about controls. We talked about magic mapping, which is mapping the evidences required. And now this is where we are mapping those controls with the respective framework, right? Now, these are the controls that we have. I will simply go ahead and add this sheet, which I have it with me. So this is webinar test criteria template. Yeah, I'll upload this. Preview. Yeah, this is all my controls. I had 14 controls there. Adding controls. Done. Once I have added it, all my controls, CTRL, CRY03, which I added in my previous step, my SPR2, SPR4, which were already present on Sprinto, all of these are ready here. Wherever there is an automated check, we are hiding automated check, and Sprinto is automatically telling you that it is 58% ready. What did I do? Nothing. For this 58%, I reuse the controls with the evidences, the checks, or whatever you call it, which was available on Sprinto already. So you build out a control, you actually created that, okay, this is my evidences, and this is what I'm going to submit to the auditor. And Sprinto is telling you, yeah, fine, I have 58% of your evidences ready. It is as simple as that. So now, this was a quick demo of this one particular feature. Happy to actually go ahead and show you how exactly all of that will roll back into audits, how exactly, these controls are moving into your policies, your procedure documents, your trainings, your risk and vendor risk, etc. But this is what we talked about. This is the first stage of compliance. We are doing a scoping exercise where we are actually defining what frameworks are applicable, what tests are applicable, how we are going to collect evidences. There's something called available integration where we will integrate with your current environment. We have a lot of integrations in your cloud environment, your identity provider, version controlling system. All of these are going to help us collect the data or evidences automatically. And then again, prove to auditor that you are compliant. So yeah, so I am done with respect to my presentation. I will quickly go back. How much time I have? Quick time check, Aarti, how much time we have?
We have around 15 more minutes, and I think there are a couple of questions for you as well. If you check out the Q&A tab, you can see them.
All right. So let's take the questions then. All right, first one, can you elaborate on advantages of embracing unified implementation in compliance management, especially in adhering to multiple frameworks? Yeah, definitely. So basically what happens is a few cases that we are, I'll give you a live case here. I'm not going to disclose the customer name. A large customer based out of Europe, they are currently going through 14 different compliances, right? 14 different frameworks. And now they are actually feeling that, okay, all through the year, the very skilled resources of their compliance team, of their engineering team, are just busy gathering evidences and submitting it to the auditor, and then ensuring that they are passing these evidences. So they came to Sprinto to solve this particular problem, that okay, how they can automate it. And even they realized, while getting compliant from last 2-3 years, they realized that okay, a lot of these evidences are repeat in nature. Everybody is asking for it, but when they are getting compliant from their auditors, the auditors are asking it separately. Like, I want it for this. There's a checklist that they share. I want all these evidences, all these 100 evidences. Then another auditor will come. They say that, oh, I want all these 100 evidences, and so on and so forth. So in the back end, there is no mapping out there, right? So advantage is basically when you use Sprinto, all these 17 frameworks, we realize that there were almost 60 to 65% common evidences that they are collecting. So instead of gathering those evidences, one at a time when that particular audit is going on, what we suggested is, why don't you continuously monitor your environment and gather these 65% evidences all the time? So now you don't have to worry about submitting these 65% evidences to your 14 different auditors or audit partners, right? That 65% of work is done. Now, in some cases, that's commonality is even 80-85%. Say ISO and SOC 2, they are compliant for both, and they realize that okay, that's 85%. So in that case, if you are done with your ISO audit, your SOC 2 audit requires only 15 extra evidences. They can go ahead and submit that 15 extra evidences. So the clear benefit here is each of the framework or each of the audit that they are going through is not a new audit for them now. They simply log into Sprinto. They see that, okay, these are the commonalities. They create an audit dashboard for that particular audit. For auditors, we share all these evidences, just that the compliance team is not collecting them again and again. It's being collected automatically, it's being reused everywhere. So there could be 17 dashboard using 17 different, I'm talking about audit dashboards, using 17 different checklists, but in the back end, they are all connected and gathering evidences once and for all. Like, so that's the benefit. Imagine the amount of work that company is saving. I hope I was able to answer that question. All right, then Mark is asking a question. You speak of system. Is it really just as simple as implementing a technology? Well, Mark, yes, it is as simple as that. For us, it's not as simple as that. We have to continuously, evaluate different compliances which are there in the market. We have to check if there's any new version is released. For example, NIST is coming up with new version. ISO recently released 2022 version. PCI came up with 4.0. So that work you are kind of outsourcing to Sprinto, where our compliance experts are sitting with auditors, identifying exactly what changes needs to be made in the common control framework. For you, it's as simple as enabling a few framework, and Sprinto will tell you what evidences you already have and what you need to just go ahead and fetch. And we will also provide you that kind of guidance. Okay, from where you can fetch it, how you can fetch it. If there's non-compliant, how you can make it compliant. So yes, it is. It's as simple as clicking a few buttons and getting compliant. But yeah, I will not give you a false hope that okay, if your systems are not compliant, you can just click a button and it will become compliant. No, a few of the technical controls are pretty difficult in nature, and you will have to go ahead and make a few configuration level changes. That's all from the remediation part. The problem that we are solving here is the visibility part. You need to know what you need to go ahead and change, right? Many a time you don't even know it. Many a times you are changing something again and again without even knowing that, okay, you don't need to change it. It's just one thing which can be reused, right? I hope, Mark, I was able to answer the question. Let me know if there's, further or, questions on that. Okay, question from our LinkedIn audience. How does Sprinto's platform adapt to evolving compliance standards and regulations over time? Yeah. So in a way, I was answering the same question that, we have a team of compliance experts. We keep a watch on what all compliances are coming out in the market. First of all, whatever compliances we support, we always keep on updating it as per the latest version which has been released. And we keep on making the changes to our common control framework, adding more controls to it, adding new mappings to different controls and so on and so forth. And second, at the same time, we are also identifying that, okay, what are the other frameworks that we can go ahead and support, right? So, for example, UK Cyber Essential was something that we were not supporting 3 months before, but now we are supporting it. We have, completed a few. We have taken a few of our customers through the audit process. So yeah, we keep on adding more compliance framework. At the same time, once we start supporting a framework, we ensure that that particular framework is always up to date on the Sprinto module, right? All right, I hope I answered that question as well. Then there's another one. Please share some practical examples of how automation done right can help organizations prevent repetitive tasks in compliance management. Okay, I have a lot of examples, right? In fact, let me go ahead and share my screen. I'll definitely love to answer this question through a demo environment. All right. Most important thing, infrastructure is a very important part of compliances. There are a lot of controls with respect to your cloud environment, which requires regular monitoring. At the same time, it requires a lot of work from your compliance team side, engineering team side, especially, right? So here, Sprinto is pretty much 100% automated. So for example, I have my AWS account connected here. So Sprinto is smart enough to know, once you connect an AWS environment, Sprinto is smart enough to know that, okay, what kind of services of AWS you are using in that particular account. Then once you have added that, Sprinto is again smart enough to know what is an EC2 instance versus what is an S3 bucket versus what is a relational database, and what kind of control should be applicable to these 3-4 different type of entities, right? An EC2 instance is a server. It will have, say, if I show you, there are 3 controls which are running. It's a server, right? A database is a bigger problem. That's what all your hackers are targeting, right? They should have more number of controls. And this is again from the perspective of an auditor. We actually went ahead and talked to the auditor to understand what evidences they will see against a relational database, right? To prove that it is compliant. Now, say all of these tests are running. Let me take just one example. AWS RDS database backup should be enabled. Simple test, right? Now we are fetching this data from AWS directly because we are connected to AWS with an API. And this is being collected multiple times a day. So I enabled this particular account today itself, and already it has collected the data almost 4 times today, right? And this will keep on happening every single day. It will give you a green dot. It will give you every green dot is an evidence, right? It's a JSON file getting collected for your auditors to review or for you to review. So the moment this green dot turns into red, immediately you will get a notification saying that, okay, this particular database does not have a backup enabled, and you will have to go ahead and, complete it. So that, first of all, there's continuous monitoring. Second, you don't have to capture these screenshots again and again and put it in some document drive so that you can share it with your auditor. We are collecting these JSON files and, these evidences automatically. Then there is a task created every time there's a failing check so that you don't miss out on something. So during the audit, you don't find out as a surprise that, okay, this particular, AWS check is failing. You will know exactly which check is failing by simply coming onto Sprinto and seeing this on a dashboard, right? This dashboard is going to show you exactly where you stand in terms of your controls, where you stand in terms of checks, what exactly is pending. I'm being very quick here because I'm just trying to answer a question. But yeah, we can discuss this in detail when you join me on a demo call. So that's your smart automation. Once you collected your AWS account with me, with my module, or maybe any Azure or GCP, you don't have to worry about anything. Now we are going to check whether that particular AWS account is compliant or non-compliant. If it's non-compliant, we are going to tell you how to make it compliant and immediately intimate you that, okay, this is something which you need to look into immediately, right? So yeah, I hope that answers the question. That's just one use case. I just took a practical example. One use case. There are many such use cases. Compliance is a people, process, and technology. I took one use case of technology, but there are many use cases around risk assessment, vendor risk assessment, people operations, your trainings, your policy documents. A lot of these things can be automated. Very simple.